The Brazen Thief. My dad and I used to run a homebrew shop here in Dublin, Ireland. We knew all our customers as homebrew was a niche business, it didn't often attract new trade. Dad was doing some accounting work in the kitchen behind a closed door and I was in the shop, sitting on the chair at the sales desk. A regular customer came in and we were talking for a few minutes. Another man on his own came into the shop and was looking around for a minute. Then he came over to me, had two of the most expensive wine kits in his hands, excused himself, and asked could he push past the other man as he was rushing. The other customer said okay. The guy put the two wine kits on the counter and told me he'd bought them from me a couple of days ago. That rang alarm bells as I didn't recognize him as having been in the shop a few days before, never mind buying anything from me. He added his wife preferred red wine and he had two white wine kits. I offered him an exchange but he wanted a refund. I told him I would have to get my dad as I'm not able to give money back. I went into the kitchen and called Dad out. He looked round the shop and smiled at the customer looking for a refund. The customer explained himself again and Dad said I'm sorry I can't give refunds without a receipt. The man got very flustered, searched his pockets and then he said it might be in his car. He left the shop and left the kits on the counter. Never came back. I asked Dad what happened. Dad told me look at the shelf. There were two gaps where those wine kits on the counter belonged. My dad was a stickler for keeping the shelves full and had just filled them prior to starting his accounting work and no customers had come in between Dad filling the shelf and the regular customer and the con man did. What we knew happened was the guy saw that I was engaged with the regular customer I was talking to and used him as a distraction so he could get the kits off the shelf and bring them over to the sales desk. I hastened to add the regular customer was a customer of ours for some years and well known to both Dad and me. He was not a knowing part of the con. The guy stood to gain about 100 Irish pounds, this was in the mid-90s, the euro had not yet been introduced, well done my observant dad. Saved us from losing a good few bob. A reunion with the man who threatened to kill me. I found out about this sub recently, and I have many retail stories to share, so this will mark the first I suppose. Over the summer, I worked at a drugstore out on Long Island. I bike everywhere, and to get to the store, I had to take one of two major roads. One of the roads was bigger and had a faster speed limit and it makes me uncomfortable to have so many cars whizzing by me. I normally choose the smaller road, which, in theory, has a slower speed limit, but because the road has less traffic, people go at whatever speed they want because the traffic cops mainly stick to the big road. Another obstacle on this smaller road is that it is very close to the beach, so there will often be large patches of sand on the side of the road, which is especially dangerous for cyclists. I was biking to work one morning and I had to go a bit into the road to avoid one of the patches of sand, and was surprised when I heard a loud car horn right behind me. A split second later, a red minivan whizzed around me, going well above the speed limit. I was annoyed by their lack of decorum, so I theatrically flipped them off with both arms. To my surprise, the car stopped until I came alongside it. Sitting in the driver's seat was an older man not wearing a shirt. As I passed him he accelerated, trying to run me off the road, coming alongside me and then swerving towards me, while screaming about how he was going to beat me up and kill me. I ignored him as best I could, dodging his car with little difficulty as there was a small grassy incline that I stayed on top of, and he eventually gave up and drove off. I arrived at work with no further incident. I mainly forgot the details of the incident a while later. A few days later, I was checking out an older gentleman at the store and we started a small conversation, and it was very nice. I wished him a nice day, and he left. Over the next few weeks, he came in every couple of days to pick up groceries and the like. Each time, we had a small conversation. One day, our conversation drifted over to the roads and traffic, and he mentioned that he always drives on the road that I bike on. I mentioned that I always use that road to get to work as well, and then I mentioned that sometimes drivers can be a bit aggressive on that road, mentioning that I had an incident a couple of weeks ago. As I say this and I'm looking at him, something clicks, and I realize that this man who I've enjoyed talking to these last few weeks is the same guy who threatened to kill me all those weeks ago. He realizes the same thing, and we stare at each other in silence for a few moments before his transaction goes through and he abruptly leaves the store. I never saw him again. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to give a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Have a good one.